So what is artificial intelligence? AI is a field of study in computer science, which involves giving machines human intelligence with the help of subfields like machine learning, deep learning, data science, etc. Right? It's just simply, in layman terms, giving the human intelligence to the machines. So where these artificial intelligence are helpful, and what are the applications that we can think of in artificial intelligence? Almost in all the industries, AI is about to revolutionize, right? So everyone is talking about AI nowadays, right? And it has applications in almost all the fields. Let us say it is a pharmaceutical industry or banking industry or finance or education, right? So manufacturing industries, in almost all the industries, uh, artificial intelligence is about to take place, right? So let's talk about one of the application which I come across, which is some sort of interesting to me, right? Let's take fire and safety for a moment, right? We very well know that if there is a fire accident, right, immediately we can make a mission to inform the nearest fire station. It is a very well known application we could think of, right, when we think of artificial intelligence and this thing, right? But what if the fireman, there is a fire in a place, fire at a place, right, and the fireman who is entering into that fireplace, just right, doesn't know what are the hazardous thing or what is the danger that is underneath this fire, right? But what AI could do is, which is developed by NASA, could potentially give the fireman a heads up of what could be the hazardous thing that is underneath this fire sort of thing. Right. Of course, in medical industry, artificial intelligence is doing, right. Almost in every field, artificial intelligence is. So a webinar series on advanced descriptive statistics and probability, right? We have already displayed it in the couple of posters which we have shared, and also through the emails we have constantly sharing this thing, right? So let me repeat it for you. This webinar series is about to cover these three topics, which is displayed in the screen right now. First one is descriptive statistics, which is currently happening. And the second webinar will be advanced descriptive statistics. And the third one would be introduction to probability. So what is descriptive statistics? Right? What is descriptive statistics? Descriptive statistics is a process of describing the features, basic features of a data. It is like extracting the knowledge out of the data, right? It is like figuring out what is behind the data. It helps us to see the data a bit close, right? So that is providing summaries and visualizations. And this descriptive statistics is achieved by providing or preparing summaries and visualizations for the data that has been provided, right? So we will talk about summaries and visualizations in a moment. So that is what is covered in the descriptive statistics, right? I hope you get a picture of what is descriptive statistics here. It is again a process of describing the basic features of a data, that is through providing summaries, statistical summaries and visualizations, graphical charts, right? Which helps us to understand the data a bit more rather than looking at the data, raw data. And inside descriptive statistics, what is covered, right? First one, types of variables. We are going to talk about types of variables and how to summarize them, how to summarize two variables simultaneously, and what it is to do with the measures of central tendency, right? And mean of group frequencies. And we'll not be seeing any examples for standard deviation of group frequencies, but I guess it is quite understandable once we see about mean of group frequencies. And at last, the last two topics, percentiles, quartiles, quintiles, deciles, right? We'll be talking about that, right? If there is still time for the presentation, right? Otherwise, these two topics, percentiles, quartiles, quintiles, and deciles, and interquartile range, which is a visualization, which is a interquartile range, and followed by that box plots. Right, all these three things, the last three things will be discussing in the upcoming webinars if there is not enough time to complete all these topics. So let's talk about variables. There are two types of variables, right, which are categorical variables and quantitative variables. Categorical variables are the labels, right? Categorical variables are labels. it could be any words. For example, user rating, right? Like excellent, moderate, good, poor, or like yes or no question, yes, no, right? Yes, no type answers, right? Answering questions, or just the name of places, or name of the products, right? Or name of the companies, right? It all comes under categorical variables. These are examples of categorical variables. And the other type of variable is quantitative variable. Quantitative variable is a numeric and fractional values, right? Is a numeric value. For example, 24 is a quantitative variable, right? Quantitative value. And 30.65 is a quantitative value, right? Both numerical and fractional values comes under this type of variables, quantitative variables, right? And categorical and quantitative can be further classified into these types, which has been listed down as ordinal categorical variable and nominal categorical variables, right? Like the name suggests, ordinal categorical variables are the one which has inherent ordering in the labels, like S, no, excellent, poor, right? Good, bad, right? So all these things do have an inherent ordering, right? So these are comes under these are all comes under ordinal type of categorical variable, right? The other type is nominal, which doesn't have any inherent ordering, right? Like the names of the different products, right? Names of different mobile phones, or names of appliances, right? Or names of few companies, right? These all are comes under nominal type of categorical variables. On the other hand, again, quantitative also, I said that, right? Quantitative also categorized into two types, which is discrete and continuous. A discrete is a set of values, right? Quantitative is a numeric value, and under quantitative, a discrete category means a finite set of values, right? And continuous, on the other hand, is an infinite number of possibilities within a infinite number of possibilities of values. Let us see an example of a categorical variable, right? How a categorical variable is and how a categorical values are, right? We already saw an example, but let us see a data, right? Which is this in the screen, right? Which has 100 observations in it, right? As you can see, it is a data set which which says about the smartphone users in the US, right? Let's say we took a survey from 100 participants, right? 100 users from US, and we asked what is the smartphone they are using, right? And they answered this data, right? They have provided this data. This is a survey of 100 users, smartphone users in the US, right? So some have answered Apple, and some have answered LG, Samsung, Motorola, right? And there are these other categories for which we doesn't know the mobile brand name, right? Or probably we have not given the list of mobile names, right? Which the user is using. Right, user was using. So probably they have no choice of selecting this other category. So what I mean is, this is a data set of 100 users, and this is a categorical value. This is a categorical type of value. And how to visualize this categorical value? How to look at this categorical value? How to summarize this categorical value? If we just look at any data set, it won't give us enough information of what is underneath this data set, what is lying behind this data set. So we need to use some summaries, like I said in the beginning, right? We need to use a statistical summary or a visualization in order to explore this data set, in order to reveal what is lying behind this data set, in order to analyze this data set. So one method to summarize would be frequency distribution. Summarize categorical variables would be to use frequency distribution. So here there is a frequency table, right, which is nothing but is giving the count of number of occurrences of this brand Apple among the 100 user survey results. Here is this table, right? If we count the number of occurrences, number of times this Apple brand have occurred, or in other words, the number of persons who have given Apple as their brand. This is the frequency here, 45. So this frequency tells us that how many number of times these brands have occurred in that data set, right? We can see that Apple have occurred 45 times, and HTC 2 times, and LG 10 times, Motorola 4 times, and other category is 11, and Samsung is 28. In total, there are 100 observations. It is needed one here. Why we are counting the total number of observations after getting this category? Because there may be some name typo error. So I was talking about this frequency distribution. I said that getting the total like this one, right, 100 is important, right? Even after taking this category or even after building the frequency table. Why is that? Because there might be some names which are repeatedly occurring with a name typo error, right? For example, let's say someone have given Samsung, right, with S capital letter, or someone, let's say someone have mistyped the word Samsung, right? So what happens? The two Samsung responses will be treated as two different responses because it doesn't match. So when we try to get this data grouped accordingly, right, in order to get this frequency in R language using R or Python, we definitely get so many different categories. So how to avoid those things? So that thing we can check it with this total. Easily we can get the total. We can find the total of the frequency and compare it with the total number of observations we had in the data set, and we can easily know that there are no repetition of the categories since there are unique number of categories here. And as we can see here, there are no missing categories, there are no missing values. So those sort of things we can see. I hope you got my point. And how to visualize this frequency distribution? Bar chart. Right. Using bar chart, we can easily visualize the frequency data. In x-axis, we can see all these brands, right? It is quite simple. In x-axis, all the brands have been plotted, right? In y-axis, the frequencies with an interval of 10 have been posted, and there is every individual bar, right? The height of the bar reflects the frequency value that corresponds to this particular brand. As we can see here, that Apple brand has 45 frequency. So this height resembles or tells us the number of frequency, the frequency value of every single category or every single brand that we have. So relative frequency is just like a proportion, taking a proportion, right? Or finding a proportion. So how it is found? So relative frequency of a class is equal to frequency of the class divided by n. N here is the number of observations. So relative frequency of, if you want to find the relative frequency of the brand LG, then we need to take the number of observations, the frequency value of the LG, number of occurrence of this LG value, 28, in the numerator over, in the denominator, we have this 100 value, which is the total number of observations. Finally, we have this thing, right, 0.28. So which is the relative frequency. It is nothing but a proportion of this LG brand in the total number of observations, right? What is the part of LG? What is the proportion of LG in the entire observations, right? Entire list of observations. So which is 0.28, and this value will be available within the scale of 0 to 1. The same table which we built before for the frequency, right? Now we can add one more column called as relative frequency, and these tables have been built using R. So because of that, you can see these notations under the labels, right? Under the column names. CHR means character type value, and INT means integer numeric type of value, and DBL means again a numeric type of value. So you can use any tool to create the frequency charts like Excel, right? Like SPSS, like Python, like R. You can use any of these tools in order to build a frequency table and visualization bar plot. Similarly, we can build a relative frequency bar chart for the summary table for this frequency distribution. And you can see that there is no difference between the bars, the height of the bars or the appearance of the bars, right? Only difference between this bar plot, the relative frequency bar plot and the frequency bar chart, is that the y-axis is now a relative frequency rather than just a frequency. You can see that both of these features are same. You can also go ahead and try in any of the tools that I have mentioned, and you can see, you will find that the relative frequency only changes here. All the other things remain same. So in order to summarize what we have seen so far, right, we have talked about the type of variables, right? What are the different type of variables that are available, right? One is categorical type of value and another one is numerical type of value, which is quantitative, right? So we took a categorical data set as an example, which is a survey of smartphone users in US. And we try to kind of summarize it and visualize it. For visualizing the categorical data, we chose the bar chart visualization technique. And we cannot see in this raw data, one more thing that I wanted to add to this part, which we have covered so far. So in this raw data, right, initially, we couldn't see anything, right? If someone asks, or if your boss asks, most of the people uses which brand, you cannot easily answer using this raw data set. If you have this frequency distribution, you can see that. And that too, if there are too many brands, if there are too many groups, you cannot see that easily, right? Say that easily. And sometimes it is, if the values are too close to one another, it is possible for us to make mistakes and miss the greater one, miss the correct value. Right? But this visualization is very powerful here, right? Which tells us immediately that which brand is mostly used by the people. We can see that Apple is the most used brand, and Samsung is the second used brand, and third one is other category, and fourth one is LG, and then Motorola, and then HTC, right? So this visualization can give it to you easily. Right, now let's consider another data set which is related to the same smartphone user survey. But instead of taking the brand, we are now going to consider the age of the person who have answered that survey. Again, we are considering 100 observations, and in these 100 observations, you can see the age of the people, right? Age of every single person who have answered that survey. 58, 23, 57, 44, 56, right? So these are all ages. Now, this is a quantitative variable. How to summarize this quantitative variable now, and how to visualize this quantitative variable now, that we are going to see. In order to summarize the quantitative variables, we can consider this technique, buckets and bins, right? What we can do is, we can, unlike frequency, we cannot do a frequency chart with this quantitative values, right? If there are more range of quantitative values, it wouldn't be meaningful enough, right? Meaningful though. So it is not advisable. Considering buckets and bins, what we are going to do is, we are going to create a bucket, right? We are going to create a bin, right? Let's say we are creating a bin for the age group range 18 plus. What we are trying to do is, from this data observations, from this list of observations, 100 observations, we are going to see how many users are greater than the age 18. If they are greater than 18, then we are going to put that age into this bin, right? It's that simple. You can see clearly that there is no person who have the age below 18, right? So obviously we expect all the entire 100 observations to get into this bin, which is 18 plus. Of course, the data have been chosen purposefully that 18 plus age group users are there, right? The entire 100 observations. And let's say it is not one bin now. Now let us try to create 3 bins, right? One bin, the first bin is within the range 18 to 38, and second bin is for the range 38 to 58, and third bin is for the people who have age more than 58, right? And if that is the case, now if we try to put the people, right, put these observations, these different values into one of these bins, whichever it is plausible, right, whichever those values are plausible, right, in this range, we can put it into this range, buckets, bins, and we can see that we get a frequency like this, right? In 18 to 38 age group, there are 39 persons, right, from that 100 observations. And in 38 to 58 age group, there are 45 persons, and 58 plus age group persons are 60. And similarly, we can think of creating 6 different bins, right? This number of the number of bins depends on purely the data set, right? the analysts have to think how many bins we have to choose such that there are no bins that have been left without any observations, or no bins that have few number of observations, right? If there are a lot of bins that have few number of observations, then it is not going to make any meaning. It is the resulting summary or the resulting visualization technique is not going to be any useful for us, right? That we have to see very carefully. As an analyst, we have to look at that. So deciding how many bins are required and what is the bin width, right? I have chosen 10 as a bin width, right? 10 as a bin width. But choosing bin width and bin number of bins is up to the analyst, and it purely depends on the data set that have been received or that the analyst is dealing with. So now that we have summarized this quantitative data set, right, and we saw that I have not put a table here, right? But instead, I believe that you can figure it out and you can visualize it in your mind itself, right? That these are the frequency, right, and these are the bins, right? And every single entity is different from one another, right? If you choosing only one bin, then this is going to be the frequency, and this is the entire table, right? And if you are choosing 3 bins, and these are going to be the frequencies, and if you are choosing 6 bins, these are going to be the frequencies, the related associated frequencies of these bins, these categories, the ranges, right? Let's now try to visualize that the bins, buckets and bins. And this is the best visualization technique if you want to visualize the quantitative data, right? Like this one here. If you want to visualize the quantitative data like this one, right? Then histogram is the one. And not only that, histogram is a chart, right? Which helps us to see the shape of the distribution. This is a histogram here, histogram plot, which is for this quantitative data, right? And you can see in the x-axis, we have put all the ranges, right? All the number ranges, age group ranges, 18 to 28, 28 to 38, and 38 to 48, and 48 to 58, and so on, right? In y-axis, you can see the frequency by unit interval. And unlike a bar chart, this histogram will not be having any spaces in between the bars, right? In between the bars, there are no spaces at all, right? Or a few little space alone is there, right? That is the histogram. And like I said, the histogram helps us to look at the shape of the distribution, and it helps us to see where the most number of data lies, right? Where exactly the most number of data, within which ranges, in what ranges of values these the observations are lying. We can easily see that. And along with that, of course, the shape of the distribution, right? Let me tell about the shape of the distribution in a moment. There are different and the different type of shapes that are available. How many bins? Like I said before, an analyst have to decide how many bins are required, right? If you are putting too many bins, if you are creating too many bins, right? And if there are not enough observations to put it into the bins, or the bins have too few observations, right? So this is what happens, right? The resulting visualization is not going to help you. The resulting summary is also wouldn't help you. So this I have listed here. If there are too many bins, it doesn't show the shape, right? Or if there are too few bins, few observations only left in each. And talking about the shape of the data, shape of the distribution that we probably could have, right? These are some of the shapes. I'm not saying that these are the only shapes that are available, right? These are the only shape of the distributions. I have just put some of the shapes that are available, right? The one which we saw before going to that histogram again and talking about what shape we got from our survey data, right? Let us talk about what are the different shapes that are available. So first one is skewed distribution, and second one is symmetric type of distribution, and third one is bimodal, uniform, and they can create another category, the other category, right? Which doesn't have any pattern, or which have mix of all these patterns, right? All the other type of distributions, right? And again, skewed distributions is categorized into two types: left skewed distribution and right skewed distribution. Okay, right. Let me tell you what is a skewed distribution. Skewed distribution is one which is one of these two categories, right? Of course, both of these diagrams, the charts are skewed distribution. One is left skewed and the other one is right skewed, right? So skewed means um, left skewed means let us see left skewed. What is left? What does how does a left skewed distribution looks like? So this is how it looks like. And as you can see here, there is a huge tail, right? There is a huge tail in the left, right? Whereas for the right skew distribution, there will be a huge tail on the right hand side, right? You can see that most of the observations or most of the frequencies are lying in the right hand side, right? And whereas in the right skew distribution, most of the distributions or most of the observations are lying in the left hand side, right? So there were a lot of annotations that I need to take care of, right? So skewed distribution, that is, and there is symmetric distribution, right? The symmetric distribution is the one uh, uh, which do have symmetric, right? Symmetric type thing, right? I don't know how to figure it out. I describe it right through words. And bimodal is the one which has two modes, right? Like the one which we have here, right? Like the hops, the number of hops that the histogram is having. Based on that, we can say that okay, it is a bimodal or trimodal or multimodal, right? And the uniform shape would be having all the bars at uniform shape, right? Let's talk about cross tabulation. So cross tabulation is helpful when we want to simultaneously compare two different quantitative variables. So two different variables, right? Not quantitative, two different variables, right? When we want to compare two different variables, right, simultaneously, then cross tabulation would be an answer to it. So we are considering a data set which is cited from Brandon Folds' YouTube channel, right here. So we have considered this data, which is 4 regions, right? North, south, and east, west, and there are totally 5 product segments, right? That the data set is going to have: smartphones, televisions, gaming, appliances, and computers categories, right? And in total, there are 100 observations of sales for each region, for every single region that have been that have been listed above, right? The north region, the south region, the east region, and west region. For every single region, right? There is going to be 100 observations of sales. So in total, we can expect 100 observations of sales for each region times the segment combination, right? Which is the segments, the 5 product segments: smartphones, televisions, gaming, appliances, and computers. In the right hand side, there is a table, right, which just gives you the north region and 5 segment sales data, sales value, right? We can see that in the north region, the sales of the smartphone segment is for $150,000, right? $150,000, right? All these values are in $1,000, 1K dollar, right? And we can see that in northern region, the sales of televisions is $161,000, and for gaming it was $346,000, and so on, right? So this is the data set that we are going to consider, right? So here you can see the total sales, the sum of sales of every single region, right? Every single region, and the sum of sales according to the segments, right? According to the segments in the right hand side table, right? So in the left, we can see that in the east region, the total sum of sales is 7,727,000, 7,727,000 $1,000, right? And in the north, it is 7,562, and in south it is 6,822, and west 7,587, and so on, right? And we can also see that the total of all the sales, the total amount of sales of all the regions is same as that of the total sales of all the segments, right? It is very obvious, right? It should be, right? Because the total number of sales should be always the same, no matter we consider the categories as the regions or the segments, right? It should be the same. The total number of sales is going to be the same. And similarly, like sum, we can build average sales table, right? Which which is the average sales, right? Average in the sense, the sum of sales divided by the number of observations in that category, right? So the average of sales is given for the regions and for the segments here, right? So this is the cross tabulation. Like I said before, why we are going for the cross tabulation? When we want to compare two variables, right? When we want to compare simultaneously two variables, we are going for cross tabulation, and the cross tabulation will be useful in that case, right? So here you can see that we have listed the application, we have listed the segments in the top, and in the left hand side you can see all these regions. In the left hand side you can see that all these regions, right? In top you can see that all these on all these segments, right? And here there is this grand total, and here also we are taking a grand total, right? And what this grand total is telling, and what this grand total is telling us, right? This grand total is telling us that this is the total sales of appliances, right? Of the segment appliances, and this is the total sales of the computer segment, and this is the total sales of the gaming segment and of the smartphone segment, and so on, right? And various these row-wise grand total tells us the total number of sales region-wise sales, right? In East region, we can see that 7,727 1K dollars is the total sales, right? And we can see that 7 this East region is having the most number of sales, right? Is having the maximum number of sales when compared to the other regions, right? Whereas segment wise we can see that this is the maximum one, right? This is the maximum sales, right? Segment wise gaming seems to have achieved more sales. Let us go to measuring the center of data. So we have three entities in order to measure the central tendency, right? So when we talk about central tendency, these three are going to be the measures, right? The first one is mean, which is average of all observations, right? And second one is median. It is going to be the middlemost observation, right? And the mode, the frequently occurred one, the most occurred one, right? It is not the frequently occurred one, it is the most occurring observation, right? Which is going to be the mode, right? So what these three entities are telling us, right? These talk about the center of the data, or these three summaries are useful when we want to look at the center of the data, right? So the mean, first one, how to calculate a mean, right? Let us consider this data set, right? Which is here in the left, right? Let us consider this data set. Let us consider this data set in the left, right? There are 12 observations and 12 salaries of employees, right? Of 12 employees are there, right? And if we want to find the mean, what we can do is we can sum all the observations, right? All the salaries. We can sum all the take a sum of all the salaries, find the sum of all the salaries, and this is the result which we are getting, right? And we should count the total number of observations. In our case, it is 12 number of observations. And finally, we need to divide this sum with this count, the number of observations, in order to get the mean, right? The average value, average salary of these 12 employees. Now, how to find a median, right? How to find a median? I said that median is a middlemost value, right? Before that, if the data set that have been provided to us is unsorted, right? Is unsorted. It means that it have not been arranged either in ascending order or descending order, right? Sorting means arranging the values, observations in either ascending or descending order. Here, in order to calculate the median, first we will be sorting our data either in ascending order or descending order, right? In our case, we are arranging it in ascending order, right? For finding the median, we are arranging it in ascending order. And after arranging it, what we have to see is we have to look at the number of observations. How many number of observations are there? In our case, there are 12 number of observations, right? There are 12 number of observations. And we see that 12 is an even number, right? There are even number of observations. Even number is the one which is divisible by 2, right? Odd number doesn't. So there are even number of observations. So if there are even number of observations, what you can do is you can take the middle two values, right? If it is an odd number of observations, we can say that okay, this is the middlemost value is the median, right? But here there will be two middlemost values, right? There will not be one middlemost values because the number of observations is even, right? So in that case, what we have to do is we have to consider two middle observation. In this case, it is going to be 6 and 7, right? Two middlemost observations. And what we need to do is we need to find the average of these two middlemost values, right? Which is 76,200 in our case, right? And this is going to be the median for this list of observations, 12 observations. Whereas if the number of observations is odd, like I said, the middlemost observation is going to be the median. It's that simple, right? And how to find the position of the middlemost observation? It is also very simple, right? We have to take the number of observations, right, in the numerator, and we have to divide it with the value 2, right? If we here we have considered only 11 observations. I have purposefully removed the last observation, the 12th observation, right? So here there are only 11 observations in order to make these observations odd number 1, right? So 11 observations are there, and we are dividing it with 2. We are getting 5.5, and if we round off to the nearest upper bound, right, we can see that it is 6, right? The position is 6, and we need to look at the value in the position 6, right, which is 73,600 in our case, and this is going to be the median. And for the mode, right, forgive me, I have not changed this topic median to mode here, right? But honestly, I'm trying to find the mode here, right? So there are these list of observations again, 1 to 12, right, which are already arranged in ascending order, right? You can see it clearly. So what we have to look at again is we have to look for the observation which is occurring more number of times. Here in our case, we can see that 54,000 is occurring 2 times, right? Then that is going to be the mode, 54,000. And some of the key takeaways from mean and median, right? The mean can be influenced by extreme observations, of course. When we are trying to find the center of a data, right? Average value from a list of observations, right? It is possible for us to get an extreme, a different value, right? Different mean, right? Which is incorrect, right? It is not supposed to be the correct mean, right? Why that is happening? Because of the extreme observations that is available within the observation. Like in our case, right? We can, if we take the same data again, we can clearly see that almost all the person's salary, all the person's salary, or this one, right? 29,500 and 54,000 and 54,000 and 65,600 and 70,400, right? It is all very close to one another, right? At least somewhat close to one another. But if you consider this one, the 12th one, right? It is 500,000, right? 500,000. This value is 5 lakh, and it have we can clearly see that it is an extreme observation, right? And of course, this 29,500 is also an extreme observation, but we cannot take it at, right, when compared to this 500,000 value, right, which seems to be very, 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 very extreme, right? And what a good analyst should do is go and look into the data again and need to check whether he or she have made any mistake, or whether is there any typo errors. It is possible for the person who have built the data to mistakenly type, instead of typing 50,000, it is possible for him or her to type 5 lakh. So a good analyst have to look at the data back and see that this is made purposefully or just a typo error. So in that way, the mean can be easily influenced. And what is the answer that could be, right? If that is the case, if we know that the data set has extreme observations, right? The outliers, in other terms, which I'm not going to discuss it today, right? So if we know that in our data set there are extreme observations, definitely finding the median would help us to find the middlemost value, the center of the data, right? So here in our case, we have an extreme observation, like I said before, right? 500,000, right? 5 lakh. And finding the median is giving this value 107,616.67, which is not supposed to be the correct center, right? But our median is giving us a correct value, right? Which can be considered as a center of the data. And it is also up to the analyst to ensure that. And one more thing also would be helpful, right? If we still want to find the mean, right? We are not interested in finding the median, right? We can go for finding the trimmed mean in case if the observation, the data set has extreme observations, right? So trimmed mean means removing equal proportion of observation, equal percentage of observations from both the ends after sorting the data from ascending order, uh, from smallest to lower, or from smallest to largest, right, in ascending order. After arranging the data in ascending order, right, if we remove equal proportion, equal percentage of values in the both ends, right, and then if we try to find the mean, that is going to be the trimmed mean. And here in our case, we have removed the first observation and the last observation, the 12th observation. And it seems to be trimmed mean is pretty closer to the median, right? Or we can consider this trimmed mean to be the true mean, which talks about, or which tells the center of the data. And this is going to be the last topic of today's session, which is grouped frequencies. With that, I'm going to close the session, right? So this is very interesting, grouped frequencies. Let's let me tell you an issue, right? Let's say we are not provided with all the observations of a data set. Rather, we have been provided with just a histogram or a frequency table. Let's say this is the frequency table, right? This is the frequency table that is available, right? We have been provided with what is the lower salary and what is the upper salary, the group, right? The salary group, right? The salary range, and the frequency, the number of peoples within that group, right? For example, we can see that 30 number of people are getting a salary, drawing a salary between 20,000 to 30,000. It means that 30 people are within that range or getting a salary within that range. Similarly, for 30,000 to 40,000, there are 20 people, and for 40,000 to 50,000, there are 14 people, and for 50,000 to 60,000, there are 14 people again, right? And so on. And we can see that there are in total 200 number of observations. It means 200 employee data we have considered, right? We have been provided with. So if this is the case, we doesn't know. The problem is we doesn't know each and every individual person's salary, right? We wouldn't know what is this 30 different salaries are going to be. One person could be one person's salary could be 20,000 exactly. One person's salary could be 21,000, and the other person could be 22,500 or 22,100, right, and so on, right? We doesn't know what is the exact salary of these 330 observations, right? But we know we do have been provided only with this frequency table, right? That tells us the salary range, the number of people within that range, and the total number of observations, right? If this is the case, how to find the average or how to find the center of the data, right? That is the issue. That is the problem that I wish to make here, right? And this is the other thing, right? Which is equivalent to this frequency table which have been given here, right? This is exact equivalent of this graph. Right? So this graph is exact equivalent of this summary, statistical summary, the frequency table, right? It is a histogram table chart, right? So oftentimes, let's say that you are looking at a paper cut, right? You are looking at a chart which is there in the newspaper, right? Some salary data, some salary representation of some company, right? And if you are interested in finding the average salary of this data, right? You are interested in finding the average salary of this data, right? And please do know that it is not possible to find exact mean, as we don't have all the individual observations value. But what we can do is we can find the mean which is more close to the original mean. So that is what we are going to do, right? So how we are going to do that? First thing, we have to find the midpoint. we have to find the midpoint, right? And you can see that there are two different tables here, and one is the original table that would be available, that is most commonly available for us, right? And in the other table, what I did is purposefully we have changed these ranges, the ending range to a rounded value, right, in order to do the calculations a bit easily. And now, taking the same frequency table, what the first step we have to do is we have to find the midpoint, right? So what is the midpoint? Midpoint can easily be found out by calculated by adding these two things, adding the lower salary and the upper salary and dividing it with 2. So this is the reason why we have rounded that the upper bound, right, in order to get a rounded value in the midpoint as well. So first step, we have to find the midpoint, right? In our case, between 20,000, for the 20,000 and 30,000, the midpoint is 25,000, and for 30,000 and 40,000, the midpoint is 35,000, and so on, right? And there is this frequency which is already available for every salary range. And the second step, after finding the midpoint for all the frequencies, right, all the groups, what we have to do is we have to find this MF, right? What is this MF? It is midpoint product with frequency, right? This 25,000 times 30, right, is going to give us 750,000, and 35,000 times 20, right, 700,000, and so on, right? So what we are trying to do is literally we are trying to find the sum of the total salary of these 30 persons, right. And how we are doing that, we cannot say that exactly this is going to be the total salary of all these 30 observations, right? But we are trying to be as close as possible, right? For that, what we are doing is we are trying to find a midpoint, and after finding a midpoint, we are just doing a product of that midpoint with the frequency in order to get the total salary of that particular group, which is 20,000 to 30,000 group, right? And you can just compare it with the real data as well, right? If you compare it with the real data, you will definitely get to know that this this value is going to be pretty close to the original sum of every single group, right? After finding the product, right, the MF product, right, after getting the sum of every single group, right, what we have to do is we have to add all the value of MF column, right, MF column, the entire MF column, and we will come up with this total salary, which is 1366 followed by 4 zeros, right? And finally, we can divide it with the total number of observations in order to get the mean, right? In order to get the approximate mean, which is not the exact mean. I have said many times that, right? It is not an exact mean. It is not the correct mean, but it is closer, pretty close to the original mean, right? And as you can see here, we have provided the original mean of the data also, right? So you can see clearly that these two means are pretty close, right? But oftentimes we took an issue that oftentimes we would not be provided with the individual observations, right? So that is the problem we took, and we found the mean frequency for that. Isn't it amazing? Right. Finally, let us find the accuracy and close the session, right? So the accuracy of this process of finding the mean of the group frequency is going to be 1 minus the original mean minus the mean which we found, right? 68,300, right? 68,300, right? Original minus the new mean, right, which we found, right, over the mean 68,300, right? The group frequency mean times 100 is going to give you the accuracy, right? We can see here that it is 99.85% accurate, right? It have 99.85% accuracy in finding the correct mean, right? It is very, 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 very close to the. So with this, let me close the session for today's webinar. Let us see in the next webinar.